The design first approach kind of eliminates that part and ensures that both worlds can work independently, but also with good communication. Generally, APIs, and especially, as I said, tools like Stoplight Studio and everything, bring this communication back because people have to interact. Stoplight is integral in terms of the design and also our public-facing documentation because it's run through Stoplight. We really like the easiness of integrating with our repositories and etc. And we also have Spectral, which has served us for quite a few years in terms of linting and ensuring that our Open API specs are proper and according to what we need. Another part of a Stoplight that helps us a lot is sometimes we can understand that being a master in a tool might need a bit more of a skills from the developer. Stoplight makes it easy because we can even have like junior developers immediately prototyping with Stoplight and then using a mock server or even trying an API against our public-facing services. It was not the case, I can be very honest. Some of the teams obviously went and created APIs without going through the documentation and design process. Now, actually, and interestingly enough, those same engineers totally agree nowadays that was a very bad mistake because those APIs kind of became their legacy and burden because nobody knew about them. APIs are always changing as technology, so you always need to update your guidelines and everything. So basically what we have for our existing APIs was the missing part of the documentation. And this is where you guys came in because Stoplight gave us a very wonderful way with a studio client of having developers quite easily document existing APIs, especially creating missing endpoints from existing payloads and etc. We introduced Stoplight. We didn't make it mandatory. We just said, if you're not very comfortable doing it the raw way, because we use we write in Open API specifications in YAML format. We said either you can choose to use Stoplight or you can use your editor of choice. I can tell you that most of our developers actually adopted quite immediately Stoplight because it makes life easier and faster to reach it. Then the second step was that we had already an outdated developers portal. So we started researching our solutions. We already knew that you provided solutions. By using a Stoplight and adopting the design first approach, we've already seen that there are feature teams within Sendcloud that can reach market way faster than before. I would even say half of the time that was required in the old days. My favorite thing is the studio. It might sound very simple, but I think it's a very powerful tool because even for experienced developers, it gives you the ability to work very fast. And one important part is that not everyone involved in a team is a developer. So you have the product side as well. Through using a tool like Stoplight, even the web version or whatever, you have the ability very quickly for a product person to understand, what you're building, and if what you're building is actually what he explained to you, because that's also part of the problem sometimes. Basically, I would say the entire company is API minded and oriented because we kind of started as APIs, although those APIs were meant to serve our UI, and then gradually started expanding the reach to the public and to the consumers. Technically speaking, our development department is around 100 developers, including product owners, QAs, front-enders, back-enders, and etc. Everyone is involved into the process of the API. And then we have the platform team, which is kind of like also the domain which my team belongs, which is the API enablement team. One of the things is that we have an API mindset, and we try to, let's say, shift to API first, because that was not always the case. So basically what you have now is developers who are kind of actually already familiar about APIs. But if we are honest, and probably you also know from your experience, APIs are not meant to be driven by developers. They should be driven by the product, because the product is what shapes APIs. So we are in a phase that we're trying to bring closer product to APIs, because they always knew about their existence, but it was hard for them to grasp how an API stands as a product alone, or as an ecosystem, a group of APIs. How do they stand as a product? It's hard, but I think everyone has the will to go there, because they know that this is kind of also the future of the industry. There are quite a lot of things that we can still improve. I think we're in our first steps into the API journey, because we're already thinking how we should iterate for future versions of our APIs, how we should make it even more consumer-centric, like how we can improve the feedback we receive, who are our personas, because not all our APIs are meant for every consumer. There are quite a few challenges, but this is what I love as well with APIs, because everything is a challenge that you have to figure out. For the newer APIs, what we are moving to, I wouldn't say that we have fully adopted, but we are trying and moving forward with that, is the API design first, the design first approach, where it allows you to more rapidly design, prototype your API, and then move into the implementation. Now, for that part, for me, it was especially crucial, because I've worked in nearly every feature team that Sendcloud has. And because we are multidisciplinary teams, like we have front-enders, QAs, back-enders, and product as well, what we were lacking was proper communication. So basically, designing APIs, I think the most gifted part of this process, is actually bringing communication and having all the stakeholders start communicating. You want to build your product, and you want it to be meaningful for your customers, consumers. This is the same thing that we want. We don't want to be building code that is not being adopted, because we need to build, not just us as Sendcloud, but everyone in this industry. We need to build considering the consumers. If you don't listen to your consumers, then there is nothing to be built.